It's wonderful to be back here to talk about the triple bottom line, which is the 3 Ps that we intend to focus on today: people, planet, and profit. Perhaps the last one is the easiest to sort of get a conclusive view on from the gentlemen who are here with us on this panel. But I want to take off from where the minister left the conversation. And he was absolutely right. Very often what tends to happen at conferences like this is that there is a lot of lament about state of affairs, where we find ourselves, what the road ahead looks like, but very often that doesn't actually translate into action. So we will, of course, do the chinta and the charcha, but hopefully at the end of this conversation we should have an execution roadmap on how we intend to tackle the 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit, as far as India's tourism opportunity and tourism industry is concerned. What we also want to talk about is the fact that it's a story of contradictions. On one hand, we talk about the fact that India has so much potential. This is a low-hanging fruit as far as the multiplier impact that this industry can create for the economy. We still don't do anywhere close to the kind of numbers that our neighbors, for instance, do, even within the region. So what holds us back? And on the other hand, when we talk about some areas where we have seen rapid move to commercialize and open up the tourism sector, there are concerns about whether that is sustainable or not, and how we've actually allowed these spaces to be over-commercialized. So to find that balance is also going to be very, very important as we move forward. But without further ado, we have all stakeholders. As we talk about sustainability, I also hope we bring in the aspect of inclusivity as well, and I hope the next time we have this panel, there are more women on this panel as well, excluding me. So I hope we do have inclusivity and sustainability as part of the agenda going forward. But Mr. Billa, let me start by asking you, because as the minister said, it has to be an ownership approach that's driven by the political leadership, by government, not just in terms of the decisions that you make, but also the money that you intend to spend. This budget actually put the focus on the tourism sector. We did see some specific measures that have been long-standing demands of the industry getting taken care of to some extent. Can you now give me a status check on where things stand as far as this fiscal year is concerned? But more importantly, as you look at the opportunity, as you look at the potential of this sector, what do you intend to prioritize now?
Okay. So let's start with the problem statement. What is the problem statement today? The issue is that today demand is outstripping supply. Because for the past 10 years, we've been the fastest growing large economy that has put money in the pockets of people. Youngsters are traveling much more aspirationally. And if you look at the destinations that we've had, we probably, except with the exception of 4 or 5 destinations, most of the tourist destinations, we've not developed any over the past 50, 60 years. So what the situation that we have today is that most of our tourist destinations are getting overcrowded, are getting filled up to capacity. The second problem statement is who is there to manage these destinations? Because we have governance at the national level, we have governance at the state level. At the destination, who is putting on the thinking cap to say that how do we manage this destination in a way that the tourist experience is great and is also great for the host community?
Yeah.
So, but this is not something that can be driven by a fiat. And as the minister said, this will have to be done collectively, is something that we need to do. But from a policy perspective, we need to give the right nudge and the framework to ensure that this works. So in the current year's budget, there are 2 things which have been clearly spelt out. The first is to reward destinations based upon the performance.
Yeah.
So essentially the idea that we have in mind is that we need to run a challenge. We need to ask the states to nominate a couple of destinations, and then we will set these benchmarks across sustainability, across cleanliness, hygiene, safety, security. And then we will have different levels, and each time they cross a level, there is a reward which is there for them. Because today when we talk about sustainability, we all get together, go there, we clean up the place, and then 3 months later it's the same story, right? How to bring it within a programmatic framework over the few years. The second thing that you will see in the budget is that there is a commitment to develop 50 new destinations, in which the state governments will be a part of it and the industry will also be a part of it. And this is much required to decongest the existing destinations. Like as Deep has pointed out in his presentation, if you're not going to make India compelling to domestic travelers,
Yeah.
they're just going to be going somewhere else. So these are some frameworks within which we are working now.
So if I could pick up on the second aspect, because this was a promise made in the budget that you intend to identify 50 destinations. Have talks begun with state governments, on identifying these cities, on identifying these destinations? Have talks begun with industry? Because this is going to be a tripartite arrangement.
Correct. So informal consultations have started, but what we are now making are the guidelines, the first cut guidelines, which will then have to be shown to the states and to the industry. But this year, hopefully, we think at least the first set of the 50 destinations should be identified and good to go.
Okay, first set of 50 destinations, hopefully by the end of this year. We look forward to hearing more from you on that, and I'll come back to you in just a second. But Mr. Bakai, I want to understand from you, this supply-demand mismatch is something that we've spoken about ad nauseum, but as we look at going from the 2.6 million rooms to over 4 million rooms, and to do it sustainably, not just from an infrastructure point of view, but addressing some of the other challenges and concerns that Mr. Billa highlighted there. How prepared is industry? How conscious is industry? What is it going to cost us?
I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit.
Okay, please do.
While it's a green topic, it's not very peppy. And I have a small anecdote. I was food and beverage manager at a large hotel, and I said to the chef one afternoon, "Chef, I'm going to go home for lunch and come back." And he said, "Why would you go home for lunch? We always have lunch here in the hotel." I said, I have an upset tummy. I'm not feeling so well. "Oh, no." He said, "Don't worry. We'll do the khichdi for you here." So the khichdi came, and the chef who made it, he said, "Food and beverage manager, throw in the ghee, throw in the dry fruits." I had the khichdi, I was down for 3 days. Now, it highlights a very, very strong socio-cultural aspect, where at the moment, the belief is, if you arrive somewhere in life, if you have money in your pocket, you have the right to waste. And a lot of it percolates in our hotels, within our hotels, because we have this concept of VIPs. We've inherited it for a long, long time, and we have some select VIPs. If Shirin Bhan were to stay in a hotel like this or anywhere else, there would be plenty of signs saying, "Put a card on the pillow, we won't change your linen. Hang up your towel, we won't change it." But you walk out of the room, in 5 minutes, I promise you, everything will be changed. Now, and it's a serious issue, because we need more and more education. We're pushing in more and more and more in that area, saying, "Hey guys, we are communicating a certain culture. Let's not assume that because he's paying high money for luxury, he wants to waste." And in any case, we're giving the person the option to change or not to change. So I think that's one part that needs to change. Secondly, if we have to move anywhere effectively, rather than just talking in these sessions, we need a certain benchmark or a certain date by which we say, give it 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years from today, we will not have, for example, single-use plastic in our hotels. We can talk about the larger community and what we do with municipalities, etc., etc., etc. But my thing is, what can I do within my walls?
Yeah.
And that needs to come from the state. That needs to come with a mandate saying, "Hey guys, you have so much time, get your act together." And when we do that, today we're talking bottling plants are extremely expensive, and they are. Package solutions are expensive. We were living with Coca-Cola glass bottles for centuries, for decades. Now, if you say to all the Pepsis and the Coca-Colas, "Hey guys, no more plastic now. You've got 2 years to get your act together," I promise you they'll come back with answers that are feasible and practical. But somebody needs to set the ball rolling. And I think as hoteliers go, as private industry goes, we are more than happy to put our money where our mouth is.
Okay, so a couple of things there, and then since you've given me the license to pep things up, let me continue with that. So are you saying industry is getting its act together, has got its act together, is nowhere close to getting its act together?
I think there's somewhere in the middle. There's good intent. There's a lot of lip service. And there are things that we're doing wrong because of the lip service. I'll give you an example. A lot of us are using, in the fanciest of hotels, wooden stir sticks. The only thing that stir up is your frustration. That stir stick cannot stir sugar in a cup of tea. They're wooden. The more expensive the hotel, the fancier the packaging. They're packaged in beautiful glass wraps, paper wraps and things like that. They cost a bomb. They're not more efficient or sustainable than a teaspoon with stainless steel. We're doing it because someone put it on their website and said it's a great thing to do, so chalo, sustainable. It is not sustainable. So I think we need to use common sense as we go along all the place. So industry is right at the beginning, 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good place to start. Anil Chadda, I'm going to get to you now. 2 on 10 is Mr. Bakaya's verdict at this point in time in terms of how industry is faring on the sustainability roadmap. Are you close to that number? Are you better than that number?
One thing we've learned in hospitality is that never argue with the senior either. So I don't want to get into the number game of 2 of 10 or 5 of 10, but I have a small view here is that I think every time we discuss this topic, we are pointing the finger at somebody else, right? I think it's a very collaborative effort. Number one is the organization that you work for. What are your steps that you're taking in? And I'll take 2 minutes to just tell you what we have done at ITC Hotels, because our DNA stems down from ITC, and the triple bottom line philosophy is something that we learned and inherited. 23 of our hotels are LEED Platinum certified. World's first 12 hotels belong to ITC Hotels, who are LEED Water Zero certified. We have 8 hotels which are LEED Zero Carbon certified. So there's a lot of effort that we have put in building those hotels. In the existing hotels, the plant and machinery, how we could convert that. How do you convert a lot of gas and charcoal and diesel into electricity and convert that into renewable energy is something that you take great pride on. So today when you stay in all these hotels, the LEED Zero Carbon hotels, you get a certificate that you stayed in a LEED Zero Carbon certificate. There's a lot of chatter definitely around every article that you read, and I think there was a great study done by one of the companies, Bain & Company, which said that India is one of those countries where the understanding of sustainability has risen almost 65%. There's a consumer who's talking of sustainability. He may not be wanting to pay you an extra dollar on that, but certainly the movement has begun on that front. So that is part of the organization. And then when you develop these things, why is it that the mayor of Indore is spoken about everywhere? How he went around cleaning the entire society, what he could govern. I think if all of us could do what we could do in our circle, things can be definitely much more faster. And the 2 can definitely become a 5, and eventually you will start giving many more examples of Indore when tourists come into the city.
Thank you very much for, by the way, sharing, and congratulations to you at ITC. And I think the minister pointed that out as well, that it is important for us to also showcase some of our success stories and hopefully create a little bit of peer pressure as well. But, it comes back to the profit question as well, Anil. When you talk about setting up all of these plants and so on and so forth that you were able to do, what does that mean in terms of investments? What does it mean in terms of capex? Because the ROI question is a question that will have to be answered by hoteliers, by investors as well.
So we were having this breakfast session in the morning, and this is what my belief is also, that I think the knowledge is limited. Now we manage a lot of hotels across the country, and to make an owner understand the return on capital, what you install today, whether you invest in the right boiler, it will pay you back in 2 years. You invest in renewable energy, it will pay you back in 6 years. So there are so many, there's something called an atmospheric water generator, which we've installed in one of our hotels. It takes care of 50% of my drinking water. No, but you need to invest in that particular machine. It's not just because you need to, because you're a sustainable company. It's the need of the hour. And the returns are very much there. So there are people available in every organization. There's a handbook being released today by Mr. Kachru. I think there's a lot of learning which can be shared with a lot of people, and to make them aware that it is not the thing to do, but it is the best thing to do economically also, financially as well.
And Mr. Billa, I want to come back to you because, for ITC, they have deep pockets. They're able to generate the kind of cash that is required to be funneled into, some of the practices that Anil spoke of. But when we talk about India's tourism sector, it's deeply fragmented. It's just about consolidating into some sort of an organized structure at this point in time. Is the government looking at also providing some sort of viability gap funding schemes, etc., for industry to make this transition, whether it is to green energy or to any of these other sustainable practices?
So I think there are 2 parts to it. One is the sustainability that you can achieve by means of technology. And he has just said that how the technology pays for itself. And in several cases, I think we have now, tried and tested technologies which are able to make market, sense as well. So the second is that how do we work with communities to, cast the net wider and create a sustainable ecosystem around it, which is linked to the tourism ecosystem. So that is something that is there. So there are some states who are already working, like Kerala, who have said that all our incentives and subsidies are linked to your achievement on the responsible tourism index.
Okay.
So that is one way forward. The government of India essentially takes a position of advocacy, and I think there are several states who are now following up on that line. But I think the position now is that it is not about, incentivizing or giving money to do this, but it is more about how do we create something, because if anything, if Kerala, and having worked for several years at Kerala Tourism, if one thing that it has proved is that being responsible and sustainable is not an additional cost burden. It actually positions you in the market better. Today, Kerala is a very expensive destination, but it still rocks because all things being equal, as consumers, we will always choose something that is responsible, that is sustainable, and that is fair.
Gaurav, let me come to you. Let's start with the success story, if there are any that you'd like to share with us. And again, to take that point forward of where you believe industry finds itself today, and if it's 2 or 5 or whatever the number may be, what do you believe the key constraints are? What do you believe the key deterrents are from moving up that ladder?
So I'm actually going to be far more benevolent. I'm going to rate this industry at 5. Given the kind of constraints...
5 is benevolent, is it?
It's pretty benevolent at this moment in time. I think the amount of constraints that we operate within needs to be looked into and lauded as far as the sector is concerned. And to a large extent, why don't we mainstream conversations around sustainability in this particular sector is on account of the fact that 90% of this particular sector is unorganized.
Yes.
And the materiality that the organized part of the sector brings to fore is very limited. Okay. Having said that, I think one or two things that went very well for us was firstly the fact that it became mandatory for us to disclose certain amount of data on account of SEBI. I think it forced most of the large players to actually go back, put in place a very structured approach towards sustainability, and I think that was a very big challenge that we had. Everybody actually spoke of sustainability. To a large extent, it was lip service that was being provided. I think when we went back and committed to certain targets, and we did that about 3 years back, and we came out with a framework called Pathya, we actually had very audacious targets that were given to us without really understanding the implications. We realized them subsequently, to our own peril. But we went out and we actually said by 2030, this is what we are going to do. At the same time, fortunately for us, because we belong to a much larger conglomerate, we had to align our priorities with long-term targets of the Tata Group. And one of the targets that I'd like to speak about as part of the larger framework called Alingana, and we are a sub-framework of that called Pathya, is to be net zero by 2045. And that's a very, very audacious target. We realized, while like most of us, we've already done disclosures on scope 1 and scope 2, we realized that in order for us to actually start very seriously mulling over scope 3, we were not ready. The other fact was that the group office actually imposed upon us that your long-term targets cannot be decided by your agenda given your age. So if I have 5 years, I start putting all my targets 5 years from today. We were forced to actually start using a very structured approach, and we are mulling whether we should go in for science-based target initiative, which actually provides a glide path from now to till 2045 to be net zero. And you have to disclose that data on an annual basis. If you don't achieve it in that particular year, they recalibrate your targets. Now, this is something that will force you to actually allocate your resources and plan your resources accordingly. I think that is where there has to be a cohesion between industry leadership and people who deliver sustainability at the shop floor level. So I think this is something that we are very proud of. We've started to put these blocks together. We started our own understanding of what sustainability means has actually undergone a huge transformation. The second part of sustainability that often tends to get ignored or undervalued is the social part of it. You know, we realize that it's not enough for you to actually create a little department called the Sustainability Department and give it to the HR head as a second hat to wear. We realized that you needed to create a cultural transformation within the organization, or let's say, for a lack of a better word, a critical mass in terms of number of people who could actually take this movement forward.
Yeah.
And 3 years back, we launched Pathya. We went to the world at large talking about it. And I think it's been able to gain some kind of traction. The third that I'm personally very, very proud of is the fact that we continued in a very traditional way, building skilling and thereby adding capacity within this sector for all of us, not necessarily for ISCL, through 56 physical skilling centers in India. Starting right from Kupwara, where we have 20 people getting trained, to let's say Assam, where we have 400 kids getting trained every year. So I think these are some of the success stories we've had, and let's see, many more will come out of this session, so we'll blatantly copy them.
And there's absolutely no shame in that. I think that is the idea. Why reinvent the wheel? If somebody is doing something and you've got a playbook that's ready and a template that's working, then might as well go ahead with that. But thank you for also being candid about the fact that, you know, the transition takes time and it isn't an easy one. But I think the point that you're highlighting is that will we continue to see this divergence where the organized sector grows in a certain way, but the lion's share of India's tourism industry is not the organized sector, it's the unorganized sector. So where does the onus then lie on to ensure that the unorganized sector also grows sustainably? You know, who wields the stick? Who holds out the carrot? Is it going to be a role that industry, organized players like you can play? Perhaps the government, of course, will have its part. But to stir things up, and I know from our previous conversations, Patu Keswani is the stirrer. He's quite the stirrer. So Patu, are you 2, 5, 7? Where are you on the barometer?
So energy I define in India as a pizza. Okay, it's got 12 slices. 2 slices go to the farmer, free. Because, you know, after all, 45% of India's population and about 15% of GDP lies there. That's the big social problem in our country. So they must get free power. Then there are us, we are voters. So we take another 3 slices. But here, you will get it cheap because you vote. So you will get energy at, say, 2/3 of what it should be. Then there are the thugs who steal energy, who, you know, manipulate meters. So they take another slice away. Now we've eaten roughly half this pizza and paid for 1/8 or 1/10 of this pizza. Now we've got the other half of the pizza. We've got another 3 slices going to manufacturing, but we want to encourage manufacturing. It's employment. So there is an industrial tariff rate, which is also about 70% of what it should be. That leaves us. See, we consume 3 slices, but we must pay for 10. Now I'm talking perverse incentive. This is the political economy in this country. How the hell do you think a power-intensive export business would succeed in India? It'd be dead. So unless we clear, and that's what I like, by the way, about this government, is they're trying to clean out perverse incentives. We are trying to become less, there's a saying, good economics leads to good politics. And I'm starting to see that happen. So when that happens, one of the common things, one of the benefits will be, you're going to find the cost of energy today, the rate of appreciation of the cost of energy, fossil-based, is going to be far more than the cost of
renewable.
No, risk-free capital plus inflation. So when that happens, then any investment I make today in renewable, the thesis is on current cost of energy versus current investment. But if I look at the trend line of the rate of growth of energy cost, and funnily enough, if inflation is coming down in India, that part of the bucket which is energy is not. It's actually growing very fast. So this is where I see the future happening. It will be rational. Now, how does the government come in? Simple. Where do you want to bring change? You said a nice thing, carrot or stick. So you have to think about it from that perspective. Make it painful for me or beneficial for me. And change will happen. So whether it's energy, you're talking 5 on 10, 2 on 10, well, Ajay is not my senior. Maybe I'm his senior. So I'll say, I don't agree. I think there are, hotels in India which are 9 on 10. And then there are minus 5 on 10. Okay, so that's how we average 2, 5 or 2 or whatever.
So clearly, ladies and gentlemen, as you see here from this panel, demand is at this point in time, and we have to be careful and mindful of the fact that we could perhaps we don't want to see a cardiac arrest anytime, but that we always need to be mindful of that. But demand at this point in time looks strong. The industry is feeling confident, but there is a capacity constraint. There is a capacity issue that requires urgent attention. It requires urgent intervention, and we've spoken about some of the ways of being able to do that as we address the triple P paradigm of being able to generate jobs, which means provide the people opportunity and to do it mindfully and sustainably for the planet, and ensure that it is sensible from a profit perspective as well. Thank you very, very much for joining us here this morning. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.